HOA installed Wi-Fi repeaters on my roof, so I switched the provider and charged them for bandwidth. Update 3. And just when I thought things couldn't get funnier, the HOA scheduled an emergency closed-door meeting to resolve the provider issue. I wasn't invited, obviously, but that didn't stop me. I used one of the repeaters as a Trojan horse, connecting into their private call and broadcasting it live to a closed Facebook group called HLA Horrors, which had more than a few disgruntled members. The reactions were priceless. Karen yelling about digital terrorism, Harold panicking about the invoices, and Penelope watching beside me sipping her lemonade and saying, "They really don't know who they're dealing with, do they?" They really didn't, but they were about to find out. The HOA retaliated like a toddler with a crayon, messy, dramatic, and completely missing the point. A week after the great bandwidth blackout began, I found a bright orange notice nailed to my front door. It claimed I had made unauthorized roof modifications, and had exactly 7 days to restore the structure to community standard condition. What did that even mean? Was I supposed to uninstall their illegally installed repeaters and pretend none of this happened? Because that wasn't happening. 2 more citations arrived the next day, this time for suspicious wiring visible from the sidewalk, and an alleged violation of aesthetic uniformity standards. Apparently my Ethernet cable, barely visible along the edge of the wall, had somehow offended the architectural soul of the neighborhood. I stood in my driveway holding the stack of citations and laughed. These people had no clue that the more they pushed, the more creative I was going to get. While Karen and the HOA board played amateur hour power games, I continued gathering evidence. I had photos, power usage graphs, surveillance screenshots, and now documented retaliation. But I wasn't just playing defense anymore. I was building towards something much bigger. That's when I noticed something odd on my energy monitoring dashboard. My smart system tracks every watt of electricity used in my home, but the data showed a spike, consistent daily, and unexplained. After some digging and a few long hours tracing wires and flipping breakers, I found the culprit. The repeaters weren't just leeching off my Wi-Fi, they were hardwired into my main power line, not even through a secondary outlet or a piggyback circuit. No, this was a clean, deliberate splice into my breaker panel, routed through a junction box that had been sealed and painted to blend in with the rest of the exterior. A contractor didn't just cut corners, they committed theft. This wasn't a prank anymore. This was straight up illegal, and I had the proof. With Penelope's guidance, I compiled everything into a formal FCC complaint, and submitted it through the proper channels. But bureaucracy takes time, and I wasn't about to wait for paperwork while Karen continued pretending she was queen of the cul-de-sac. So I moved to phase 2, the power bounce trap. It was elegant, a simple script connected to my smart home hub that monitored load variance. Whenever the load spiked beyond a certain threshold, say during primetime movie hours, the system would cut power to the affected circuit for 10 seconds, then restore it. Just enough to crash streaming devices, interrupt downloads, and confuse anyone watching. And it wouldn't trigger the breaker, so no one would know what was causing it. The best part, it only affected the circuit powering the repeaters. My house stayed untouched. Their Wi-Fi became a living nightmare of buffering, reconnecting, and mysterious outages. Naturally, it didn't take long for the chaos to escalate. Neighborhood group chats exploded with questions. Was there a wiring issue? Had squirrels chewed through something? One guy started a conspiracy theory about electromagnetic pulses. Karen, ever the beacon of misdirection, issued a community alert, blaming unstable provider infrastructure, and hinted at switching vendors. She even threatened legal action against the unnamed contractor she thought was behind the dropouts. I considered sending her an anonymous invoice just for the irony, but I held back barely. Then came the emergency HOA board meeting. They tried to keep it private, of course, scheduled at night, held in the community center with locked doors and a members-only sign taped up in cheap font, but they forgot one tiny detail. Their repeaters still connected to my custom network, and that meant I had access to everything. I watched the entire meeting through a laptop in my kitchen, while eating popcorn like it was a Netflix binge. The drama was better than any scripted show I'd ever seen. Karen yelling about unstable service, Harold panicking over rising costs, another board member suggesting they tear the whole system down before someone got sued. At one point, Karen mentioned my name, called me digitally hostile, and then suggested that I might be trying to sabotage the community. That was the moment I decided to record the feed and stream it live to a few trusted residents, who had started asking questions. The reaction was instantaneous. Turns out I wasn't the only one who had beef with the HOA. The stream spread faster than I expected. Within an hour, over 50 people had tuned in. Some watched silently, others began messaging me through a burner email I'd created for the occasion, sharing their own stories. Late fees for bogus charges, citations for things like wind chimes, forced lawn color changes. One person even got fined for a bird bath being too whimsical. The HOA wasn't just incompetent, they were a full-blown regime hiding behind bad stationery. The fallout from the leak came fast. The next day, a small but growing group of residents confronted Karen during one of her self-appointed morning walkthroughs. Someone printed a screenshot of her accusing me of sabotage, and taped it to the community bulletin board, the same one she had used to announce the original repeater installation. Karen tried to deflect, but it was too late. The cracks were showing. People were asking questions she couldn't answer. Why were the repeaters installed without resident consent? Why was Eli paying the electric bill? Why were there invoices from a company no one had approved? And most importantly, why was their Wi-Fi suddenly garbage? Now you can watch the fourth part by pressing share and more.